What's up, guys? It's the end of December, and by the time you're watching this, it's going to be January. I'm sorry for the late video, but the holidays and everything kind of got crazy. So I wanted to come on here and give my Oscar predictions. Let's just get right into it. Best Picture, I have Anora, The Brutalist, Wicked, Conclave, Amelia Perez, The Substance, Dune Part 2, A Complete Unknown, Nickel Boys, Sing Sing. So I really feel like Anora, The Brutalist, Wicked, Conclave, those are all locks. Amelia Perez and The Substance, they they should be locks. They're just not, in my mind, they're not locks yet. The Substance has been performing really well. We've had the Golden Globes, the Critics' Choice. A lot of critics groups all give their nominations or wins. The Substance has been there a lot. Um, and then for Amelia Perez, it hasn't been there a lot for the critics groups, but it was there for the Globes and the Critics' Choice. I mean, I think it broke a record for the Globes, and I can see Amelia Perez breaking a record for the most Oscar nominations for this year, and possibly getting close to the most of all time, just based on how everyone's voting for this movie. Like those are almost locks. That's kind of like the almost lock section, but like Amelia Perez, the reviews aren't amazing for it, but I don't think that's going to stop the Oscars. That it hasn't stopped it with other movies like Don't Look Up that had like a Rotten Tomato score. That this doesn't have a Rotten, but it's low. It's like in like the 60s or 70s, I think. So those two are definitely getting in there. I do think The Substance will be an above the line movie, while Amelia Perez will be like all over the place, like all throughout, above the line, below the line, stuff like that. So those are very close to a lock. And then we have Doom Part 2, which is like with The Substance. I should put that in with The Substance and Amelia Perez. I just think with the problem with Doom Part 2, it's probably going to get nominated for a decent amount of things. I don't know if it's going to beat the first one's nomination number. And two, I think it came out so long ago this year that people are starting to forget it, and like all these other movies are coming out and people are finally talking about them and they're getting nominated and stuff like that, where the conversation for Dune is getting smaller and smaller, which is unfortunate because Dune Part 2 is amazing. So then we have the 8, 9, 10 spot, which is A Complete Unknown, Nickel Boys, and Sing Sing. Complete Unknown and Nickel Boys got what you want to see for an Oscar, like a Best Picture, movie. Got AFI, it got Golden Globes, it got Critics' Choice. It's gotten, critic stuff here and there. It's just like, I don't, the Complete Unknown, I feel like I have it higher because it's kind of like a movie of Oscars past, very Beatty, very musical biopic. They love biopics. A lot of them have gotten nominated in Best Picture, and it also just like it's just like an Oscar type movie. These kind of biopics, musical biopics. Nickel Boys is more experimental, so it's just like I don't know how the Academy is gonna feel for it. I do think the DJ is gonna be a big thing to talk about, and we'll talk about when we get director, but if Ramel Ross gets into DGA, then I think the reception towards Nickel Boys will be very warm. And I do think the Oscars will follow suit with that. And then I have Sing Sing. I just think A24 botched this release so bad. No one's talking about it. It got snubbed at the Globes. I do think Clarence Macklin's going to get snubbed. I just think it's slowly getting taken away from it, where I think in the beginning of the year, where because it came out last year, everyone's like, this is the movie to win, this is the movie to win, and slowly, sort of like Doom Part 2, but like Doom Part 2 is still in the conversation and had a big box office and a big release and all that. Sing Sing didn't have that box office and release to kind of like get people to continue to talk about it for the rest of the year. Some people I don't think ever got it in their theaters. I think they're releasing it later on this year, closer to I think I don't know if they re-released it already or they're re-releasing it for like to kind of get like second wind and stuff like that. I think that might be too late at this point. So I wouldn't be surprised if Sing Sing fell out. I want to say Complete Unknown staying in there. It just is that type of Oscar movie. So it's really like Nickel Boys and Sing Sing, where I feel like the buzz isn't strong enough yet, and it could build. Don't get me wrong. Especially if it gets nominated and then continues to win other things, it can kind of have that momentum that people are starting to talk about it because they're winning all these things. But I do think 2 can easily pop into the 10 that are in my 11 through 15, which I have. My 11 through 15 is A Real Pain, September 5, Challengers, Nosferatu, Cedar Sacred Fig, The Wild Robot, Saturday Night, Gladiator 2, The Room Next Door, and All We Imagine Is Light. After Cedar Sacred Fig, I don't really think any of that's happening. I just put 20. That's like long shots. But anything above Cedar Sacred Fig or above, I do think has a chance to possibly pop in there and be a surprise. But I do think A Real Pain and September 5 have you can make an argument for them being a number 10 movie as well, which would kick out Sing Sing, or if I flipped it around, possibly Nickel Boys, or if both got in there. You know what I'm saying? So, A Real Pain had Golden Globes. It's like the front runner for supporting actor. It missed Critics' Choice was a very interesting thing because it's a very critic loved movie, and to miss Critics' Choice was a big thing. That gave me the inkling to maybe like, oh, maybe they're gonna just recognize the screenplay and the acting and stuff like that. And then September 5, it got Golden Globe. It didn't get critics for Best Picture, but I don't know if I have it exactly in my 5 for editing or screenplay, but it's definitely like either like right below the 5, and it's just kind of coming out of nowhere. Where I think no one's really. It's kind of doing the opposite of Sing Sing, where no one's really talking about it, but it's like also like not. It's getting big. It's getting big things that no one anticipated. Where Sing Sing, they're anticipating this and it's missing some things. So I don't know if like almost like Sing Sing September 5 is kind of like gonna swap. It's a very Oscar movie, I just don't. You don't hear a lot about it, so I'm not sure what people's thoughts about it are. And to put it in editing and then not give a Best Picture, a lot of times editing is Best Picture nominees most of the time. I do think would be interesting, and then have to get editing and then almost all of a sudden get snubbed for a picture. So that's why, like in my head, I'm like if it was just screenplay, it's screenplay, whatever. But like being a contender in editing is a big deal because, like I said, a lot of times they're Best Picture nominees. So I can see that easily popping in. Challengers, I think has to do a lot more work. I do think the below the lines are kind of the best for it. Could there be a surprise? Yes, but I haven't seen I've seen more than I thought I was going to see with nominations, but not enough to be like, oh, that's going to be Best Picture. Nosferatu, it's doing what horror movies usually do for the Oscars. They're not going to get it. It's going to be a craft award as well. A craft awarded movie as well. And then See the Sacred Fig, there's usually like, the front runner for international, like for foreign film in this, and I think Amelia Perez is so much the front runner, like leagues past the others, that like there's not even like a conversation for other foreign movies. And like with the critics groups and stuff like that, it did get like a director, I think, for like the LA critics, but like it didn't then win Best Picture, so it's like it's sort of like talked about but not getting like the recognition that I think people want it to, which is why I have it so low. And then, like I said, everything else I don't think is happening. I will say, for a complete unknown, Nickel Boys, depending on, the future nominations and awards for, up until Oscars, they could switch. And, one could build more momentum than the other. But as of right now, they're kind of like, they have all the stuff that you want it for. So it's like, which one would the Oscars choose? And I feel like they would go more with a classic Oscar movie than like a more experimental movie, because we already have like, The Substance and Amelia Perez, those movies that are taking swings and stuff like that. I don't know if they will go for like so many of them. It is the Oscars. They do kind of like weird things. And Sing Sing could hold on. Sing Sing could definitely get nominated. Just because it's number 10 doesn't mean it's not going to get nominated. I do think it's on the bubble because it just depended how well their FYC campaign was, and I don't think it was done that well. But the people who need to see it might have saw it and then definitely recognized it. Like I said, I do think 1 through 7 are happening. 8, 9, 10 is where we can get a little tricky with some other movies coming in. So, Best Director, we have The Brutalist, Anora, Amelia Perez, The Substance, and Conclave. I recently saw The Brutalist, and the craft of it was fantastic. So I can definitely see the Oscars wanting to recognize that. He made this like sweeping, epic 3.5-hour movie with like very limited resources. And also it's like his second movie. So like usually they don't like to do that, but I think because he almost like jumped like 7 levels, that the Oscars like picked him up on their radar. Be like, oh, interesting, who is that? And I do think director it's become the more showy movie gets director ever since they kind of like don't necessarily have the same winner for picture and director. It's like, because if Anora was going to win, I would say, usually back in the day, I would say Sean Baker. But now that like those aren't correlated anymore, they can do 2 separate things. I'm going to go with Brady Corbett. And Sean Baker's right behind him because, like I said, because Anora is the front runner as of right now. I have Amelia Perez at number 3. He is a very like acclaimed French director, and the movie came from Cannes and it won awards. And just like just like Anora did, I don't think that's something to kind of just throw away. They do like a foreign director in here as well. I'm kind of going based on like what they usually put in there. They like to have, the front runners. They like to have a foreign director, like a woman, and so I do think that is also what's helping me make my picks for these 5. Which then leads me to The Substance being in there. I thought she was on the cusp, but then she got Golden Globe. She got Critics' Choice. I do think she's gonna get DGA. She has won and been nominated for a bunch of critics ones, and I think that says a lot. And it's kind of like with the Daniels, it came out swinging, and so with Amelia Perez, that he came out swinging with his movie, where I think they want to recognize him. Also, for the last few years with Critics' Choice, the Best Director winner also went on to win Best Director of the Oscars, and I do think the Critics' Choice is going to give The Brutalist Best Director, so that's also why I have him in the front. And Conclave, there's just something about Conclave that I'm not counting out. I think more people like this movie than people think. I think it's higher on people's lists than people think. And I know Edward Berger didn't get nominated for All Quiet on the Western Front, and I think because of that, they might want to recognize him now with this movie. And I do think he's going to get a BAFTA nomination. I do think he's going to get, because I had him on the cups from like critics and Golden Globes, but critics gave everyone a nomination, and Golden Globes even gave him. I do think he is in that 5. And I think BAFTA's going to show it, and I think DGA is going to show it, and then it's going to be hard not to take him out. And then that moves on to my 6 through 10, Dune Part 2, Nickel Boys, Wicked, Cedar Sacred Fig, All We Imagine Is Light. It was very hard to not have Denis Villeneuve in here. He was snubbed for the first one. I just think it's going to happen for a second one. I think Dune 2 is going to be treated as like a middle movie, unfortunately, because it's better than the first one and just an amazing movie in general. But I do think it's going to be snubbed more than people think overall across the board at the Oscars. Nickel Boys, I want to see DGA. If he gets DGA, I would be willing to, I don't know who I would take out, but somehow maybe get him into my 5. If not, put him at 6. I just don't know if they're going to, because this is his first like narrative feature film, they're going to give him like the first time award at DGA, and then like he unfortunately gets snubbed at the Oscars. And then when he makes his next movie, he'll get it from there. They don't know, a lot of times they don't give you this for your first like narrative feature film. Just from what I've seen. I could be wrong on that, but I just haven't seen enough of that to be like, oh yeah, like they'll still give it to him. It all depends on how much kind of love Nickel Boys is going into nominations. And for me, I think the nomination process has closed for the Oscars because it's only like, or maybe like in a week or so it's going to close because it's coming up soon in a few weeks. But I just don't see the love for it as much as the other movies. Then I have Wicked. I think a lot of the conversation this year is going to be which musical gets into some of these categories. I think for director, Amelia Perez is going to get it. Because how do you not give director and then give it to picture and also like nominate it for like almost every category? It's just hard to see that in my mind. And with Wicked, it's not getting nominated in almost every category, and I do think there are other things they'd rather nominate it for than directing. He's only gotten critics in Critics' Choice Awards and some other critics groups. So could that be a surprise where like we see John M. Chu? Yes, I'm not saying it's totally out of the picture, but like I think unless we're seeing like Wicked in cinematography, we're not seeing it in director. Best Actress: Mikey Madison, Demi Moore, Carlos Gascon, Cynthia Erivo, Angelina Jolie. Mikey Madison's she's won too many things. I can't not have her as the front runner. It's just they had like a poster of all the like. I think she's the most awarded actress this year. It's hard not to put her at the front runner. She is the front runner. Demi Moore has risen. She has been winning some of the critics groups. She was nominated for both Critics' Choice and Golden Globe. I think she's going to get SAG. I also saw this correlation that I thought was really interesting where a movie that wins makeup and there's a transformation involved, a lot of times that actor not only nominated but wins. For example, like Tammy Faye, The Whale. Could that be The Substance? I would love to see it. I don't know if she can overtake Mikey Madison, but that's what put her to number 2. Then we have Carla Sofia Gascon. I think she's nominated. I don't know if she's the front runner or like on the cusp. She's good. Like I said with director, how are you going to nominate this movie for like 10 awards, if not more, and not include Carla Sofia Gascon? She is Amelia Perez. That is the titular character. Then I have Cynthia Erivo. At the beginning, I thought Cynthia Erivo was going to be like a Margot Robbie. And it's seeming like that's not true. She could even go possibly above. She could even be a number 3 for people. But I don't think you should count her out. I do think Wicked with the like production design, costume, and acting is where I feel like their nominations are locked, or close to it. So I'm not gonna put. I had her at 5, and I kind of switched it because I think she's gonna get SAG. I think she has a chance to win SAG, and if you win SAG, how do I have you at number 5? So, and then finally I have Angelina Jolie, who has fallen a little bit, but it's just because I don't see the buzz. Like I said with like Nickel Boys and Sing Sing, I just haven't really seen the buzz for Maria. Not Angelina Jolie. She got Critics' Choice Awards, she got Golden Globes, she's gotten critics groups. Not all the time. It's not as much as like Demi Moore, Mikey Madison, Cynthia Erivo, stuff like that. She's definitely not gotten as much. But Pablo Rayan's movies always get his actresses nominated, so like that's what's like also keeping me there, like keeping her in the 5. I want to say she has a chance to be snubbed. I don't think she is. She's gotten what you need to get, especially if she gets SAG and if she gets BAFTA. I just think this might be the 5. There might not be a lot of surprises, but I never count out the Oscars for doing something crazy. Because then underneath the 5, I have Nicole Kidman, Marianne Jean-Baptiste, Fernanda Torres, Zendaya, and Saoirse Ronan. Really, the only kind of like contenders here are Nicole Kidman and Marianne Jean-Baptiste. Baptiste has gotten a lot of critics stuff. She got Critics' Choice Award. She's even won some critics groups. And Nicole Kidman, while I think Baby Girl, now that it's out in theaters, it's not getting the love I think it had pre-release. It's still Nicole Kidman. It's one of those ones where it's like no matter the actor, they are like at that level where it's like any performance will get nominated. I don't think either of them are going to jump in. Because I just think this 5 is pretty solid. And then for Fernanda Torres, I think if she was in more of the conversation, I would have her higher and more of a risk. But her, Zendaya, Saoirse Ronan, they've got nominations here and there, but nothing crazy. Best Actor, Adrian Brody, Timothée Chalamet, Ralph Fiennes, Colman Domingo, and Daniel Craig. This has been the 5 for so many awards and so many critics groups and Golden Globes and Critics' Choice and all that. I'm pretty sure it's going to be SAG. The only, like, my 6 through 10, I have Hugh Grant, Hederick, Glenn Powell, Sebastian Stan for Different Man, Sebastian Stan for The Apprentice, and Jesse Eisenberg for Real Pain. I don't really think any of these are going to jump in except Hugh Grant. I do think he has a high chance of getting a BAFTA and a SAG. And if he's gotten all 4 before the Oscars, how do you not put him in your 5? Which is why I'm like, who does he take out? I would think probably Daniel Craig. Even if he doesn't get SAG, he got 2 out of the 4. That's a lot. That's a lot more than some people even get before being nominated. Like Kristen Stewart, I think, was snubbed for a few of them before Spencer and then ended up getting the Oscar. Could Hugh Grant get this? That is crazy to me. I haven't seen the movie. I heard he's great. But I also heard, like, it's not like... I heard he's great, but not like... It's not like Oscar-y. The other ones are more Oscar-y performances. So, really, out of actor, it's kind of a... not boring year, but very standard year, where it's like, this seems like the 5. And I think the race is really between Adrian Brody and Timothée. Best Supporting Actress, we have Ariana Grande, Zoe Saldana, Isabella Rossellini, Margaret Qualley, Danielle Detweiler. I do think the 4, I'm just going with because those of it what have been nominated consistently. And I will say I was not expecting Margaret Qualley to be in this qualification of being nominated for like Globes and Critics' Choice. Because when you get both, it's like it seems like that's the consensus. And then it kind of like, you know, there's one, possibly 2 that, you know, can be filled in from other stuff. And I think those kind of fill-ins are either going to be Danielle Detweiler. She's not a guaranteed. She has been snubbed in a few places. But then you have Felicity Jones, Andrea Ellis-Taylor, and Selena Gomez. I think those are the three that have the chance of taking the number 5 spot away from Danielle Deadwyler. If Amelia Perez is kind of like the movie of the day come Oscar morning, I can see Selena Gomez getting it. I can also see Felicity Jones has kind of missed. I feel like her conversation about being nominated is not really there as much as like Adrian Brody and Guy Pearce. That's why I kind of don't think she's gonna get. I think she's gonna be snubbed. Andrea Ellis-Taylor, from what I've heard, she's very good in Nickel Boys. Small performance. It just depends if they want to recognize that small of screen time, but obviously they do because I have Isabella Rossellini here, who has like maybe, if not 10 minutes in the movie. So I do think right now it's going to be Danielle Deadwyler. I think she's going to get SAG. I think BAFTA is going to go to maybe Felicity Jones or Selena Gomez, possibly. A part of me wants to raise Selena Gomez, but I'm not going to because I just think the conversation isn't there enough to swap her out with Danielle Deadwyler. But definitely, either of these three can definitely pop into 5. But right now I have Danielle Deadwyler. And then at the bottom at 9 and 10, I have Elle Fanning and Monica Barrero from Complete Unknown. Best Supporting Actor, I have Kieran Culkin, A Real Pain, Guy Pearce, The Brutalist, Yura Bosiov, Anora, Denzel Washington, Gladiator 2, and Edward Norton, A Complete Unknown. Yes, I have Clarence Macklin snubbed. Just a gut feeling of mine that is saying they're not going to go Clarence Macklin. Colvin Domingo has gotten almost every award nomination you can think of. All the critics groups are at least putting him in there. Golden Globes did. Critics' Choice did. Golden Globes did, even though they snubbed Sing Sing and Clarence Macklin. I just don't think the conversation... I think if the conversation was bigger and they did a better job with the release, his name, he could have been like the Troy Kotsur, where I think he wasn't necessarily the front runner at first, but kind of grew and grew as the award season went on. They just didn't do the same thing. I just think because Sing Sing was kind of botched with its release, people didn't get to see him really accepting awards or on like there on the carpet talking about, you know, how he was in this program. Didn't get to know him enough, where I think they're not nominating him enough, and also because this is like one of his first movies that hasn't stopped him before, so he could be nominated. But right now I'm going more with this 5. Clarence Macklin definitely could sneak in. After that, I think 7, 8, 9, 10, which is Stanley Tucci, Mark Eilstein, Jeremy Strong, and Adam Pearson. I don't think they're going to happen. I think if anything, out of nowhere, a surprise will come out here. But really, the only surprise out of these 5 that could be Clarence Macklin sneaking out, and who I would take out, it would probably be Edward Norton. But he has gotten a lot of nominations as well, and I think, you know, that if he gets picture and they get a couple crafts and they get, you know, supporting best actor and supporting actor, it's just a nice package for A Complete Unknown. Like I said, a biopic the type of biopic that the Academy has loved in the past and I think still loves. It's kind of that like classic old way of making movies that they loved and they wanted to recognize. So that's why I'm putting him above him right now. But yeah, the same feeling I had where I thought Zone of Interest was going to win sound over Oppenheimer, I have about Clarence Macklin being snubbed. It's just something about it, and I think if he definitely gets snubbed from SAG, 100% getting snubbed. If he gets SAG, I don't know if he's going to get BAFTA, but if he gets SAG, maybe. I'll see what place he took, but I think, yeah, because SAG is the only one that has 5. Golden Globes, Critics' Choice, and I think BAFTA all have 6, which make it a little harder to squeeze out who's going to be that 5th, who's going to be the 1 through 5. SAG, you know, it's the acting branch, so SAG has 5, and I think that's going to be very important to see who those 5 are, and that comes pretty soon. Original screenplay: Anora, The Brutalist, The Substance, A Real Pain, and September 5. I think Anora is the clear winner for this one. The Brutalist, I think I could see it getting snubbed, but I think they like to recognize, like, similar to editing, if you're able to edit a 3.5 hour movie, and this is like a sprawling epic over decades, and like, you know, to write that is not easy. The Substance won the Cannes Award for writing. So I think like that, I think that also helps keep it in the conversation and put it like high up on this list. A Real Pain is being praised for its screenplay, and September 5 has gotten a few screenplay nominations. The WGA is not going to be helpful here. A lot of these are ineligible for some reason. I'm not really sure what the reason was. But we have just Globes and Critics' Choice before Oscars. So I do think September 5 could be swapped out with Hard Truths. Mike Leigh gets a lot of nominations just for screenplay, like sole screenplay ones. Being Bleecker Street, I'm a little weary of that happening again because it hasn't gotten a lot of movies. I think it's gotten like 1 or 2 nominations in its entirety of Bleecker Street. So I think the same as like with Mary and John Baptiste, it's just hard to get in there when your movie's not getting pushed hard enough. And like while Mary and John Baptiste has gotten nominated, I haven't seen Hard Truths get nominated a lot. But because Mike Leigh with the Academy has gotten a lot of nominations solely in screenplay, I had to kind of put it at number 6. Because I can definitely reading Oscar morning, reading that and being like, oh, okay, wow, like he pulled it off again. There's been some movies where his movies have gotten directing and acting and screenplay. Some were just acting and screenplay, and then some were just screenplay. The most has happened with just screenplay. Then we have challengers: Cedar Sacred Fig, Saturday Night, All We Imagine Is Light. 8 through 10, I don't think is happening really. I think challengers would be the surprise to get in there. It has gotten nominated for some time in some places. I don't know if it's going to be able to push in over Hard Truths or September 5. They're kind of comparing September 5 to like Spotlight. And if Spotlight were to, and if September Guy got some of the ones that Spotlight got, it would be like screenplay, editing, picture, stuff like that. And challengers, I just see it more, its best chances being song and score. So could it happen? Definitely, especially now that like Queer fell off. It has a better chance of being recognized because people want to recognize Luca Guadagnino maybe in one of those movies of this year. He had 2, so they wanted to recognize one of them, and it could definitely be challengers. Best adapted screenplay of Conclave, Dune Part 2, Sing Sing, Nickel Boys, and Amelia Perez. As of right now, I think Conclave is the one to win. Dune Part 2, I think they might snub it for a lot of things, but they want to recognize, they might recognize it here in writing and some of the crafts, and that's why it's kind of high up. Sing Sing, I think to me it's becoming more of like a actor screenplay situation more than like best picture. And the Nickel Boys, I have it in right now, so I'm going to leave it in screenplay. And then I have which musical is it going to be. That's pretty much the game I'm playing right now for 5. Is it going to be Amelia Perez or is it going to be Wicked, like I mentioned earlier in the video? I think that's going to come up a lot. Which musical do they give it to, Wicked or Amelia Perez? And here I think because I'm leaning more towards Amelia Perez for a lot of these questions, or a lot of like when I go between Amelia Perez and Wicked, because they're definitely going to nominate Amelia Perez more. Wicked definitely could pop in there. I just don't know how much love to give to Nickel Boys. I think because it's so experimental, I definitely think it could get, because it didn't get sound. It didn't get sound for shortlists, and I definitely think it's going to get nominated for cinematography. But is it more of a craft movie than an above-the-line movie? And I just don't know that answer yet. But if they snub Ramel Ross, they can acknowledge him here with screenplay. So it could be like a screenplay cinematography situation. Screenplay is definitely where they choose movies that they don't necessarily nominate for Best Picture. But they also have a lot of Best Picture contenders in there as well. So it's interesting to see that mix, and interesting how they're going to do that this year. And then after Wicked at number 6, I have A Complete Unknown at 7, Hitman at 8, The Wild Robot at 9, and The Room Next Door at 10. I don't really think any of these could overtake the 5. Maybe A Complete Unknown, depending on if it overperforms at the Oscars and gets more than like the few nominations I'm thinking it's going to get. International feature, we have Amelia Perez, The Cedar Sacred Fig, I'm Still Here, Flow, and Kneecap. And then 6 through 10, I have Vermiglio, The Girl with the Needle, How to Make Millions Before Grandma Dies, Universal Language, and Armand. A lot of people have Vermiglio, and it's been nominated for like Globes and stuff like that. I'm putting Kneecap in because it got more than I thought I was going to see at the shortlists. And I know it doesn't correlate all the time, but there's just to see that where I thought it was going to be like almost like go non-existent. You're only going to really hear about it in the international feature if it was nominated, but to see it in other categories on shortlists definitely means the Oscars are paying attention to it, which might make it be able to kind of like jump over Vermiglio and cross into number 5 in the top 5 spots. Documentary, I have Daughters, Northernland, Black Box Diary, Sugarcane, Will and Harper, and then 6 through 10, I have Remarkable Life of Ibelin, The Homie, Soundtrack of Coup d'Etat, Union, and Porcelain War. I really don't know what to make of the documentary ones, just like international, so I'm just going to just read those out and come Oscar morning, we'll know the 5, and then we can whittle it down from there. Best animated feature, I have The Wild Robot, Flow, Inside Out 2, Memoirs of a Snail, and Wallace and Gromit, Vengeful Most Foul. I like I've mentioned in other videos, I think Moana 2 is following the tracks of Frozen 2, and actually even worse than Frozen 2. Frozen 2 came out, didn't get nominated for Best Animated Feature. I think it nominated for song. I'm not sure if it won for Into the Unknown, but it definitely was nominated. I thought Moana 2 would kind of follow that track, but I don't think it's going to get any nominations. There could be a surprise nomination for Beyond for Moana 2, and it could have that same track record as Frozen 2. But I think because it's not Lin-Manuel Miranda, it doesn't have that same caliber of interest to voters, and I'm curious if that's going to hurt it as well. And then after Moana 2 at 6, I have Piece by Piece, Lord of the Rings, Transformer Was 1, and Spellbound. Cinematography, I have The Brutalist, Dune Part 2, Nickel Boys, Nosferatu, and Amelia Perez. The Brutalist is just a stunning movie. I just think that's the frontrunner right now. Dune Part 2 won for the first one. I think while I said it's going to be snubbed a lot, the ones it does get nominated for, I don't think it's going to win because it won already a lot of times in 2021 for that Oscars. So then Nickel Boys, I think this is its best chance because how experimental it is, and I think cinematography branch likes to recognize more experimental stuff in black and white, and you notice the cinematography in that way, not like other categories where it's like more seamless into the movie. This one they like to see the showy stuff, and that's definitely Nickel Boys. Nosferatu, period piece, cinematography, nominations are usually like period pieces along with some other craft ones. Amelia Perez, the way they shoot this movie, the way they use light in this movie is very interesting. I think the way all of these are filmed are very interesting and sometimes different and sometimes just stunning, and I think that's why these are in there, and that's why it's a kind of a solid 5. My 6 through 10 are Maria, Conclave, Girl with the Needle, The Substance, and Wicked. Maria could pop in there, but I think if like even Angelina Jolie's having trouble and that's like the top nomination this movie can get, it's gonna probably be hard to get anywhere else in like cinematography. I think I might have it in costumes, but I can see that falling out because if you can't get your like number 1 spot for nomination being Angelina Jolie, the other ones start to fall as well. I also am gonna be shocked, but also am preparing myself to see Wicked be nominated for cinematography. Not that it was like a garbage movie to look at. It wasn't. I just think the cinematography could have been better, and I don't know if that's like in the room of contention for like being the top 5 of the year. So that's why it's like hard to like kind of like even have this in contention. Maria, Conclave, The Girl with the Needle, and The Substance have different elements that could put into the conversation cinematography and a better chance for cinematography nomination, better than Wicked. Wicked, I just think if come Oscar morning they have a Wicked bonanza and just start throwing nominations everywhere, definitely this is where it could be one. Because I think this is kind of the marker of like how high they're going to nominate it. If it gets this, it's definitely getting a high nomination count. If it misses some of the ones they thought, then it might be towards the lower one. It's going to be interesting to see that on Oscar morning. Editing, usually a Best Picture, like I mentioned earlier, a Best Picture movie, more or less. There are some exceptions, but we have Anora, The Brutalist, Dune Part 2, Conclave, Amelia Perez, all right now in my Best Picture nominations. I have September 5, Wicked, The Substance, Challengers, and Saturday Night underneath, which is why I have September 5 so high, like in my like 11 or 12 spot, because it's getting these crucial like key nominations that correlate with Best Picture. Best Production Design, we have Wicked, Dune Part 2, The Brutalist, Amelia Perez, and Nosferatu. This is Wicked's best shot at winning. I think with the actresses, Cynthia Erivo's not number 1, so it's not a guarantee. Ariana Grande, I have number 1, but she's very close with Zoe Saldana. So it's interesting. It's gonna be. I'm curious to see where they're gonna lie, especially if Amelia Perez is over-nominated. Especially more nominated than Wicked. That means the Academy loves Amelia Perez more than Wicked. So with this one, though, I do think this is a lock to win. A lot of people don't have Amelia Perez in here. I just have it in because they shot all on studio with no outside locations, and I think the way they did it, I think also leans into more with the cinematography as well, that it just kind of felt like you wouldn't know that necessarily. And I think that was an interesting way to do it, and I think that should be recognized. And then Nosferatu, a period piece. Production design along with the other crafts like fantasy, they like period pieces. That's why a lot of those are in this kind of the top 5 right now. Wicked, a fantasy. Dune Part 2, a fantasy. Brutalist, a period piece. Nosferatu, a period piece. Amelia Perez would be the only kind of modern one, but it's very interesting way they did it, so that's why I also have it in there. Then I have Gladiator, Conclave, The Substance, Beetlejuice, and Saturday Night. Gladiator could pop in there. Ridley Scott movies do come into the top 5 for the tech categories. Napoleon did, I believe, last year. I just think, I do think, if anything, Nosferatu, Amelia Perez could switch with Gladiator 2. And then Conclave, depending on like how much they get out about their campaign, like how much they built, like recreated these sets, maybe it can pop in there, because I do think Conclave can definitely overperform more than people think. So Gladiator 2 and Conclave could pop in there, and I think Amelia Perez and Nosferatu could be at risk. The other ones, I'm not really sure if they're going to happen. As much as I loved the crafts and The Substance, I just don't think the Academy, for some reason, is not recognizing them, and they're recognizing the above the line. And usually it's the other way around. So I thought that was very interesting for this movie. Best costume design, I have Wicked, Dune Part 2, Maria, Nosferatu, Gladiator 2. I think Wicked is probably definitely going to take this. The costumes are fantasy, like I said, fantasy and period pieces. They're extravagant. They've been really pushing the technical aspect of Wicked, I think, in hopes to get a lot of craft nominations. I do have Maria here. Like I said, I do think if Maria can't get actress, this costume nomination might fall. And then they might put in possibly The Brutalist or Conclave. Nosferatu, the costumes were very well designed. Gladiator 2, the same with production. I think they recreated these things very well. The Brutalist and Conclave, I feel like, unlike, I thought The Brutalist was going to be like Oppenheimer, where it gets, almost every nomination, but it seemed that's more Amelia Perez this year. So I think The Brutalist might perform well, but not like go crazy. And Conclave, yes, they made all the Cardinals robes, but it's I just like production design. I don't know how much they're going out there saying this is how much work went into it, because if you think about it, people might be thinking, oh, they just kind of copy and pasted it. So it really all depends on who the Academy is going to favor, like how much love is going into these movies going into voting. And then, like I said, I have Beetlejuice, Blitz, and Challengers. Challengers, they don't really nominate a lot of modern movies and present day movies, but this was designed by like a fashion designer, and I can see them wanting to recognize him for his work of being able to go between the fashion world and movie world. And while Blitz shortlisted in some places, I still think it's kind of like DOA. I definitely think Beetlejuice has a better chance than Blitz, and a lot of that is because Colleen Atwood did the costume design for Beetlejuice, which on name alone they might want to recognize her for, because she's been recognized for so many other things, and the Academy does love her. I'm thinking about this now. I think costume design could be Wicked, Dune Part 2, Nosferatu, Gladiator 2, and Beetlejuice, because of the status Colleen Atwood has. But if Angelina Jolie gets the nomination, then I can see Maria staying there. It's going to be interesting to see that. Makeup and hairstyling, I have The Substance, Beetlejuice, Dune Part 2, A Different Man, Nosferatu. I think that's a pretty solid 5. 6 through 10, I mean, Amelia Perez, the makeup for Carlos Sofia Gascon was very good, and I can see them, which I think they're going to, shower love to this movie, and I think that could be one of the nominations that people didn't expect. Wicked, it brings back to that question, which musical do you like more? So it depends on, can they give it to both? I'm not sure. Waltzing with Brando came out of nowhere, so I feel like I should put it in my 5, because if it comes out of nowhere, that means the Academy in that makeup branch, for the shortlists especially, they recognized it. Now, because it got shortlisted, it made conversation again, and it could kind of rise a chance to get nominated. I just don't know if it's gonna do that. I mean, they made him look like Marlon Brando, so I could be putting this higher later on, closer to the nominations. Then we have The Apprentice and Maria, but I definitely think this is The Substance's lock of a win and a nomination, because that's where it started way back when we were first talking about all these movies. The Substance was always in the top 2. Now I think that's been its number 1 nomination. It just kind of grew and grew and grew from there. Best visual effects, I have Dune Part 2, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Mufasa the Lion King, Gladiator 2, and Alien Romulus. I think this is, if Dune 2 is going to win anything, it's probably going to be visual effects, unless they finally break the curse of a Planet of the Apes movie winning visual effects of the newer movies, and it wins in that, which I can kind of see, because just for Dune, is going to have a presence, but I just don't know how big of an impact it's going to make at the awards. And I can see them finally. That could be like, I can see the article now. Planet of the Apes movies finally gets recognized. Like, you know, the new Planet of the Apes movies finally get recognized for visual effects, because the people have been saying those other movies should have won. And it's always up against a bigger movie. So will this happen again? We'll have to see. Then we have Mufasa, The Lion King, Gladiator 2, and Alien Romulus. Alien Romulus I didn't have in there for a while, but because they performed very well the shortlist, and I know, like I said before, it doesn't always correlate that way. That's definitely going to get a nomination. It means people are interested in it, and I always thought visual effects and sound were going to be its best chances, and I think it's a very well looking movie with the visual effects on a smaller budget, and they've been liking to recognize smaller movies. So I can see Alien Romulus is definitely getting in. Then I have Better Man, Wicked, Deadpool, Wolverine, Twisters, and Civil War. I mean, they do like, you know, CG characters, the Academy, so they could go to bed with Better Man, Wicked, if they love Wicked. They do like Marvel movies, so they could put Deadpool, Wolverine. This one, I feel like, you know, could be played around with more. Like on Oscar morning, we could see a little bit of a different variation. But I do think the top three are locks. Best sound, I have Dune Part 2, Gladiator 2, Wicked, Emilia Perez, and A Complete Unknown. I have Dune Part 2 winning this one as well. Could that change? Possibly. It could, you know, pick up visual effects and sound, and that could be all it picks up. But it could be, you know, this year where people have thought they've already given this award to them. I think it won sound and visual effects already, so why give it to them again? I think it's worthy of it, but it happens only a few times where like the sequel repeats a lot of its wins compared to the first one. And some possible spoilers, I think really Alien Romulus is the only one that can probably sneak in there, but I think this 5 is pretty solid right now. I have Alien Romulus, The Wild Robot, Deadpool, Wolverine, Blitz, and Joker Folio Do. Then we have score. I have The Brutalist, Conclave, Emilia Perez, Challengers, Wicked. I think this is Challengers' best option to get nominated ever since Dune 2 got disqualified, which makes no sense, but Wicked can be in there. That's a whole nother conversation that I get angry about. But I do think because Wicked is going to perform well, it's going to get in there. And I think it's going to start a whole conversation. It's going to be like, you disqualified Dune Part 2, but not Wicked. It's all I can see it all happening because they're going to nominate it. And then below I have The Wild Robot, Sing Sing, Nosferatu, Room Next Door, Gladiator 2. I don't really see a lot of these scores popping in. I feel like this 5 is pretty solid as well. And then finally, best song, I have Mi Camino, Emilia Perez, El Mal, Emilia Perez, The Journey, the 688, Compass Recrest, Challengers, and Harper and Will Go West from Will and Harper. I think this is going to do where I think it was American Symphony, the documentary, where it got snubbed. Even if it got snubbed from best documentary, it still gets song. So I think this has a good chance of getting song, this movie. Could it be snubbed out of documentary? Possibly. They don't love celebrity ones, but I feel like this subject matter might bring more attention to it. More people might want to recognize it. Then I have Kiss the Sky from Wild Robot, Beyond from Moana 2, Tell Me It's You from the Mufasa, The Lion King, Like a Bird, Sing Sing, and Out of Oklahoma, Twisters. They like to nominate like big movies and small movies kind of in this category. So as of right now, I think it's a decent 5. Something possibly could pop in. You never know. There's Lin-Manuel Miranda's in there. Song is a little bit of a wild card. I mean, there was that one year where it was just Rio and the Muppets movie. So those are my predictions for the month of December for the Oscar nominations. If I can try to get a video out before the nominations, I will make a January one. But if not, I feel like this one should suffice unless crazy things happen at SAG, and I may be able to, make a shorter video. But I'm sorry this one came out a little late, but it might have worked out, kind of a bridge between December and January. So we're now inching closer and closer to Oscar morning to see those nominations. Let me know what you thought of my nominations, and let me know what you think should be nominated down in the comments. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Cheers.